Hi, I'm going to go over some ideas about how this writer was able to accomplish the score point 4. This was a persuasive example for a score point 2 on the STAAR English exam. The prompt was to write about whether or not you felt like happiness was something that you could choose. So this is the student's paper, and then I wanted to share this part down here about what the scorer said about the student's paper. The writer of this essay introduces a complex position in the first paragraph. According to the writer, there are natural and artificial emotions, and although people may fool themselves into believing they are happy, their natural emotions do not give them a choice when it comes to being happy. In the first body paragraph, the writer effectively develops the first idea of a natural emotion with a compare-contrast organizational structure, comparing the notion of choosing to be happy with choosing to fall in love. And the student logically concludes that we must fall into happiness to truly feel it, just as we fall in love. So that's the comparison and contrast organizational frame. Sustaining the focus on the position statement into the third paragraph, the writer extends the argument to a discussion of artificial or fake emotions. Citing movies, television, friends, and family as exemplars, the writer explains how happiness is also confused with a positive outlook. By sustaining this strong focus throughout the composition, the writer has created a unified essay. The student's purposeful and precise command of language and the essay's logical progression of well-developed ideas indicate an accomplished writing performance. So I wanted to go more deeply into kind of not just what the organizational structure was, but how this writer was able to accomplish that. The first thing I want you to look at is that when I'm reading this first part right here, this whole section, you can see from this part right here that there's an indent, and then it ends here and then indents here. There's also another paragraph here and another paragraph here. This first one serves as the introduction. So when I'm reading it as a reader to figure out what's going on, this is kind of what I do. When it comes to emotions, there are two of every kind. The first being a natural reaction, the second being artificial. A true emotion is a natural reaction we have to something that triggers our minds into a certain state or feeling or sentiment. So at this point, I'm still not really sure what side this person is taking. But I can see kind of where she's going because she's looking at true emotions, and so she might be ready to connect this later to happiness. I'm not sure. While a fictitious one, so here's the contrast. It's a fake feeling. A fictitious one is a feeling we have naturally felt before, but will mimic in order to fool ourselves or the people around us. So I'm getting a hint that she's going to say, you can't choose us, happiness, because she's talking about fooling ourselves. Then she breaks and she says, so I do not believe that one has a choice when it comes to being happy. There we have it. That right here is her position, and she is making the statement here about what she believes is her statement. Now what I want to go through and do is show you more and focus on how the student has focused on developing her idea and maybe naming what the techniques are that he or she has done. I don't know if it's a male or female. And I want you to look at these ideas. I've typed it here so we can get into more of what the student was doing and thinking. I'm going to turn on the review tab so we can turn on some comments and say a little bit more about what's going on. I don't want that there. All right, so this whole thing, I was going to say that if I was going to label what this is introduction. So now I have the introduction with the thesis or position at the last paragraph. Now what I want to go through and look and name what the student is doing with all of these items. And I wanted to show you a thing called CAFE SQUIDD. that I find to be really helpful in understanding how to name what writers do to develop their positions or explain their ideas. It works both with expository and persuasive texts. So the first thing that is on here is comparisons. And so what we would be looking at here is a comparison or contrast, which is what this writer has done whenever, as we're told in the description of the essay down here, is that she started out with a comparison and contrast organizational scheme in this first paragraph. So look what she's done right here. We hear it everywhere, at school, at home, and in religious studies. I want to point out this part right here. One of the things that writers do to develop their ideas is they give examples. And so what she's done is she has given us basically 3 places or instances of where we hear this advice. And if you look here on the next thing that we have for the CAFE SQUIDD, look right here, quotes. This writer has done that very same thing with the quotes. This next part right here, happiness is a choice. She's given an example of a specific quote that she hears in several places that she goes about happiness is a choice. Now, what she's going to do is she's going to do, to me, what she's doing right here is she's giving her personal opinion. And connects to the thesis that you can't choose. Because what she does is she says, I feel like this is a lie. And then look what and then she says, and is the same things as saying love is a choice. There we go. Here's what she's done now. This is where she says is she's making a comparison to, let's see, a comparison between love and happiness. Basically, she's given us another example that we can use as readers to help understand what she's talking about. Then look what she says. I'm not speaking about friendly love. I'm talking about romantic love. This isn't on your CAFE SQUIDD, but right here she clarifies what she's talking about. It's a non-example. So she's given us a little bit more detail about how we can understand exactly what she's talking about. So we have a picture of not just about friends in love. We were talking about somebody that you're choosing to be romantic with or intimate with. So here she goes. She's using this whole extended example about love that helps us figure out what the rest of it is talking about in terms of you can't choose to love somebody romantically any more than you can choose to be happy. So whenever I look at what this means in terms of the CAFE SQUIDD, if I wanted to name it, this is kind of turning into an illustration. And an illustration is similar to what preachers do whenever they give an example or a story or a parable to help explain an idea. And let's look at more how she goes into this illustration right here. So no matter how hard we try, it's impossible to choose to love someone, meaning you can't just point at a strange man and confess your undying love and affection for him. So this one right here begins what I would call an illustration, where she's giving more information about the love example. And that's as much time as I have for on this free account.